US President Donald Trump confirmed Australia will grant asylum to 5 Iranian women football players.
NATO have intercepted an Iranian missile heading to Turkey for the second time in less than a week as the conflict in the Middle East continues to widen.
Von der Leyen and Kallas called on Europe to adapt to a chaotic, coercive world order at the annual conference of EU ambassadors in Brussels. US President Donald Trump said on Monday that Australia had agreed to grant asylum to some of Iran's visiting women's football team whose players refused to sing the national anthem while playing there during the Middle East war. A few hours earlier, Trump had urged Australia to grant them asylum, saying Australia is making a terrible humanitarian mistake by allowing the Iran national women's soccer team to be forced back to Iran. Iran's women's team lost its last group match against the Philippines on Sunday, and teams ousted during the group stage usually leave within days. The squad arrived in Australia for the Continental Championship last month before the war in the Middle East broke out on the 28th of February.
NATO forces have intercepted an Iranian missile heading to Turkey for the second time in less than a week as the conflict in the Middle East continues to widen. Confirming the incident, NATO spokesperson Alison Hart reassured that the alliance stands firm in its readiness to defend its members against any threat. However, as of yet, there is no indication that Ankara is initiating formal proceedings against Iran, though the government has summoned the Iranian ambassador for a formal rebuke. Last Wednesday, Turkey's Ministry of Defense intercepted a similar ballistic missile close to the Syrian border, an area where the US maintains a military presence at the Incirlik Air Base. Speaking to Euronews, Colonel Martin O'Donnell, spokesperson for Allied Powers Europe, warned that Iran is targeting the US footprint and attacking public spaces indiscriminately. While the alliance has increased its security posture, O'Donnell reiterated the Secretary General's stance, stating NATO is not part of this war, but NATO will defend itself. Police in New York have detained 2 teenagers suspected of bringing homemade explosives to a protest outside the mayoral residence on Monday. 18-year-old Emir Balat and 19-year-old Ibrahim Kayumi are accused of hurling a smoking device filled with nuts, bolts and screws into a crowd at Gracie Mansion. Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch confirmed the incident is being investigated as an act of ISIS-inspired terrorism, though the device failed to ignite. The arrests follow a chaotic counter-protest against far-right activist Jake Lang, a vocal critic of Zohran Mamdani, the city's first Muslim mayor. Mayor Mamdani, who was not at home during the attack, stated the suspects traveled from Pennsylvania with the sole intent of bringing violence to the city.
While I found this protest appalling, I will not waver in my belief that it should be allowed to happen. New York City will never tolerate violence, whether from protests or counter-protests.
Federal agents have expanded the probe, searching 2 properties in Pennsylvania linked to the suspects. The incident marks a significant escalation in local tensions as police continue to investigate the suspects for extremist ties. However, no formal charges have yet been filed. An explosion has struck a historic synagogue in the Belgian city of Liège, damaging the windows of surrounding buildings in the early hours of Monday morning. Police confirmed the blast took place at approximately 4 a.m. with no injuries reported. Belgian Prime Minister Bart de Wever denounced the incident as an anti-Semitic act, stating that such attacks are an assault on the nation's core values. The mayor of Liège, Willy de Meijer, echoed his concerns, adding that foreign conflicts must not be imported into Belgium. The Belgian Federal Prosecutor's Office has said that it is leading the investigation into the explosion in view of possible indications of a terrorist offense. Built in 1899, the synagogue is a landmark for the local Jewish community and serves as a museum dedicated to heritage.
The move has brought European solidarity to the forefront. French President Emmanuel Macron and Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis travelled to Cyprus for an emergency trilateral meeting with President Christodoulides amid the war in Iran. In their statements published after the meeting, all three leaders had a common message: any attack on Cyprus is an attack on Europe.
Θέλω πραγματικά να σας ευχαριστήσω εκ μέρους του κυπριακού λαού, εκ μέρους της Κυπριακής Δημοκρατίας για την άμεση ανταπόκρισή σας στο αίτημά μου, για την έμπρακτη, για την ουσιαστική στήριξή σας, για το ξεκάθαρο μήνυμα ότι η ασφάλεια της Κύπρου σημαίνει ασφάλεια και της Ευρώπης, σημαίνει συλλογική ευθύνη.
Venir ici à vos côtés avec le Premier ministre de la Grèce, c'est vous dire que lorsque Chypre est attaquée, c'est l'Europe qui est attaquée. Et que la défense de Chypre est évidemment une question essentielle pour votre pays, pour votre voisin, partenaire et ami la Grèce, mais aussi pour la France et avec elle l'Union européenne.
Η Κυπριακή Δημοκρατία της Ευρωπαϊκής Οικογένειας δεν είναι και δεν θα μείνει ποτέ μόνη. Κάθε σπιθαμή ευρωπαϊκού εδάφους είναι απαραβίαστη. Οι κινήσεις μας είναι αμιγώς αμυντικές, μακριά από οποιαδήποτε πολεμική εμπλοκή.
The French aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle is expected to arrive in Cyprus, accompanied by frigates from other European countries, to strengthen Cyprus' protection.
Ukraine's Oshad Bank is demanding the immediate return of cash and gold confiscated by Hungarian authorities last week, lawyers representing the bank in Hungary told Euronews. The incident triggered a diplomatic row after Hungarian police raided a convoy of cash couriers near Budapest and seized $40 million, 35 million euros and 9 kilograms of gold. Hungary expelled 7 Ukrainian nationals accompanying the transport the following day and opened an investigation into suspected money laundering. The 7 Ukrainian nationals have been banned from the Schengen area and the broader European Union for 3 years, according to the law firm. The lawyers told Euronews that the Ukrainian vehicles were carrying out a routine transfer from Austria's Raiffeisen Bank to Oshad Bank's headquarters in Kiev. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha accused Hungary of kidnapping and state terrorism, while his Hungarian counterpart, Peter Szijjártó, said the funds could be linked to criminal activities. Hungary's Minister for Construction and Transport suggested the funds could have been intended to finance opposition parties ahead of Hungarian elections. Ahead of the Eurogroup meeting in Brussels on Monday, Greek Economy and Finance Minister Kyriakos Periakakis told Euronews' flagship program Europe Today that the EU is being tested. The situation in the Middle East remains indeed deeply problematic and highly uncertain, leaving energy markets in turmoil.
I would also add that we're also tested economically. And this is what we're going to be discussing today at the Eurogroup meeting. Energy is going to be a core element of our discussion. The impact of energy prices is significant already, and we want to see how we're going to meet that challenge on the ground as well.
Oil prices eclipsed $114 per barrel for the first time since 2022 on Monday as the Iran war intensified, jumping roughly 25% since Friday and threatening global production and shipping. Pierakakis sought to reassure that the EU is prepared to deal with a potential crisis and even floated the idea of a single European energy market.
We already have a toolkit, and the toolkit is the 2022 toolkit. We're not yet there, but businesses and households are already signaling that they want to see what type of support they would receive should the crisis deepen. We need to remove the barriers that exist between the member states of the European Union, and if we're speaking about energy, we need a single European energy market, which we don't have.
Was I just the same before the accident?
There wasn't any accident. Everything we did it on purpose. to do now but live.
This is a movie. This is the kind of movie, I mean, it was built for IMAX. It's meant to be appreciated as a piece of cinema in a movie theater, not only because of the scope of the cinematography and the design, aspect ratio changes if you see it in IMAX, but also because of what it's about. I think the thing that's amazing about seeing movies in a theater is that you have an experience next to strangers in the dark. And if this movie is about, which it is, embracing the secret, monstrous sides inside of all of us, it's kind of a little bit of a radical action to do it in the dark next to a stranger. It's like going to a concert.
Come on, big man. You don't want to play?
Until death do us part.
What's my name? I can't remember.